With the 4th overall selection in the 2025 NHL Draft, the Utah Mammoth are proud to select from the Moncton Wildcats, Caleb Deone.
With the 5th pick in the 2025 NBA Draft, the Utah Jazz select Arias Ace Bailey from Rutgers University.
With the 53rd pick in the 2025 NBA Draft, the Utah Jazz select John Tonje from the University of Wisconsin.
And with the 18th pick in the 2025 NBA Draft, the Washington Wizards select Walter Clayton Jr. from the University of Florida.
Welcome into the Saturday show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. You heard it right there. It was a busy week on the station. NBA Draft Wednesday night, NHL Draft Round 1 last night. The rest of the draft will continue on today. But exciting week on the station, Alex.
Absolutely. Getting the wall-to-wall coverage of both drafts. You got some interesting and exciting young prospects coming in for both teams. And I'm excited to see how this all plays out, Christian.
You have a good week?
Great week. Well, that's a lie. It was an okay
You don't
week.
sound too hot.
It was an okay week. I'm a little under the weather.
That's all right.
But we're doing good.
Did you try my remedy?
I did not try your remedy.
We don't have to put it on air. We'll keep it a secret. But,
I did not try your remedy because I don't have the special ingredient.
Oh.
I have to go get
Let's just say
the special ingredient.
I have a pretty tried and true remedy for colds, but
we'll see. I got to try
I'll keep it a secret. I'll gatekeep. Yeah, it was a fun week, busy week. I love doing the draft shows. Obviously, you helped out a lot too, and everybody on the station helped out. It was a busy week for everybody involved. I think draft week is very fun. By nature, I'm a very hopeful and optimistic person, and so I think that's part of why I love drafts. I love the NFL draft as well.
Right.
NBA, NHL draft. It's like the feeling when those selections are made, it's like, okay, these guys are the future. And there's no thought in my mind about these guys busting. I think that they're going to have great careers. And I'm excited to see them come to Salt Lake City. All of them.
Absolutely. Every single one of them. I'm excited to see them, whether, it's Bailey or Clayton Jr. coming over to the Utah Jazz, or whether that's Caleb heading over to the Utah Mammoth. I'm excited to see how all these prospects end up panning out. It's always fun to see players get drafted. It's always fun to kind of have new guys come in regardless.
Yeah.
And like you said, part of the optimism of hoping that these guys can pan out to be superstars.
Yeah. And I think, each of the selections that were made have a very good shot. Obviously, the Jazz picking at 5 and the Mammoth picking at 4, those are very good picks.
Yes.
So the thought would be that they have a higher chance of hitting. And
Right.
We'll get into the whole Ace Bailey situation because that stuff was crazy news surrounding his agent allegedly not wanting him to come here. And then there was a whole drama about ESPN claiming he missed press conferences, which was not true, by the way. I want to point that out. That was not true.
Yeah.
Ace Bailey did not miss any sort of press conference. The Jazz are not holding that until next week. And as far as I know, that's always been the plan. It has nothing to do with Ace Bailey. He's expected to show up to Salt Lake City today, which is a day before they need him. They don't need him here until Monday. So
Right.
you can lay all that drama to rest. Busy show today, though. I want to set the scene. We're going to be talking to Chandler Holt here in a second. He writes for KSLSports.com, and then he also does the Jazz Notes podcast. So Chandler's going to come on and help us talk the Jazz draft and the rest of the NBA draft. And then later, coming up, we're going to talk with Cole Bagley. He covers the Utah Mammoth for KSLSports.com. Busy day for him because the NHL draft rounds 2 through 7 are today. The Mammoth do have a pick. They are picking 46th overall today. So that draft is underway right now. Talk to Cole Bagley coming up later. And then, of course, big news surrounding Jake Retzlaff came out last night in the midst of all the craziness. He has responded to the civil lawsuit filed against him. So we'll touch on that later. But like I said, Alex, first up, let's get to Chandler Holt. You can read him, as I said. He's a digital producer for KSLSports.com and co-host of the Jazz Notes podcast every single week. Thanks for joining us on a Saturday morning, Chandler. How you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good. Good morning to you guys. Happy weekend.
Chandler, I think you and I both agreed earlier in the week that if some way, somehow, Ace Bailey landed at number 5, if he was available at number 5, the Utah Jazz had to take him. What about Ace Bailey makes it so the Jazz had to take him at 5?
Yeah, it's a really good question, and I would say for me the best case scenarios was Ace Bailey and Trey Johnson. They ended up going with Ace Bailey, which I do think was the best case scenario, and I really think it just comes down to the ceiling of these players. Like, you could argue that Keontae George could maybe become an all-star one day, and then maybe even like Isaiah Colley or Kyle Filipowski, who both had really good rookie years. But with Ace Bailey, it's basically undeniable. Like, if he can reach his ceiling, he is going to be not just an all-star, but probably a multiple-time all-star, and we might even be talking about an all-NBA level talent because his shot making is just ridiculous, and he has all of the physical tools to even maybe develop into a two-way player. Don't get me wrong, he's super raw right now, but the Jazz finally have a guy that they have a good amount of faith can reach levels that they're unsure other people on the roster can.
I mean, by pick-wise, right, he's the best prospect the Jazz have had in a long time. And then you could argue, looking at Enes Kanter and some of the other guys that they've drafted that high, Ace Bailey's probably even a better prospect than them. So all in all, he's a very good prospect coming in. You got to think, and I was listening to your Jazz Notes podcast, I had the same thought coming in. You got to think the Jazz are pretty glad that they lost as many games as they did. I mean, if they win even one or two more games and Washington picks at 5 instead of them, then they don't get this guy who was seen by many as the second or third best player in this entire draft.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of funny, which something me and Ben had talked about on Jazz Notes on our reactionary podcast after the first round. It really came down to a Bub Carrington game winner on the last day of the NBA season. It was a crazy game, and then the Washington guard hit a crazy shot to I believe it was the Miami Heat on the last day of the season, and then that allowed the Jazz to secure the worst record. And you're absolutely right. He was the second or third guy, and because of this pre-draft process, he ended up slipping, which ended up working in the Jazz's favor. All of this smoke, even after he was drafted, with him not reporting, it's really unfortunate. It kind of put a stain on the pick, but I still think that the Jazz did the right thing in selecting him. And also I think that even that story was blown out of proportion a bit by national outlets.
As far as, I mean, we're talking about the lottery luck that the Jazz have had and them ending up at number 5, but as far as them falling back to 5 and being able to have Ace Bailey fall to 5 to them, how important is it for the Jazz to get a player of that caliber at number 5?
Oh, it is super important. Like, if the draft falls a different way, like say Ace Bailey does go 3, and then you're looking at like VJ or Trey Johnson at 4, then it's like the Jazz are picking amongst a bunch of guys who are like, do they really help us that much? Like specifically Jeremiah Fears, I was not very high on Jeremiah Fears. And also I just think that he would accentuate a lot of the weaknesses the Jazz already had last year. So I think that the draft, I genuinely think with context, the Jazz had the best draft in the first round this year. You could argue San Antonio Spurs, but they also got lucky by getting the second pick with the Mavericks taking Cooper Flagg and them taking Dylan Harper. They basically did what they were supposed to. The Jazz had to make a decision, and all early signs point to them making the right decisions.
I want to talk about the fit of these guys, and we can talk more about Walter Clayton Jr. here in a second. I think the two biggest things that the Jazz were missing last year were scoring/shot making and defense. And I know that Ace Bailey and Walter Clayton Jr. aren't really going to do a lot defensively, but offensively, man, those guys can put the ball in the hoop. What positions do you think that these two guys are going to come in and play? And how do they kind of fit with the other recent draft picks the Jazz have had the last couple of years?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I also saw something recently like, the Jazz are like have so many forwards. I doubt Ace Bailey will get much opportunity. Ace Bailey is the Jazz's guy now. Like I feel very comfortable saying that he is going to start. And also I think that he's going to slide into that small forward position like pretty easily. Like at the guards, you have Isaiah Colley or Keontae George. We will see what happens with the names like Colin Sexton and Jordan Clarkson this offseason. And then when you're looking down at bigger forwards, you have Kyle Filipowski, Lauri Markkanen, and then big men like Walker Kessler. I think that Ace Bailey's kind of interesting because even though he's bigger, he projects more as a 3 and then a 2, more than a 3-4. If he puts on some weight, though, he absolutely can move down to that power forward position. I think he absolutely is a day one starter for the Jazz. And then for Walter Clayton, something that me and Ben talked about as well is there's a lot of redundancy with him and specifically like Keontae George and Jordan Clarkson. So it will be interesting to see what the Jazz do about that. But I also think that picking Walter Clayton, a longtime college guy and a winner, was very calculated by the Jazz because you're bringing in Ace Bailey, who's a one and done, and also didn't have much success. And I'm not saying he's a me guy, but he's definitely a shoot first guy. So I think that was very calculated, not necessarily to have Walter Clayton be a leader, but like two rookies coming in, I wouldn't be surprised if Walter Clayton's like, hey man, I'm going to the gym. You going to be there? Stuff like that. But yeah, the fit with Walter Clayton is interesting. Like I said, him and Keontae have similar games. So maybe it'll definitely be a positional battle at the very least. If both of them are on the roster next year, it'll be interesting to see who sort of prevails in that battle with Keontae already having some experience with the team and Walter Clayton coming in. But I think Walter Clayton was an amazing pick at 18 as well.
Taking Walter Clayton at 18, he's a little bit older, but he does have a little bit more experience considering that he had the extra years in college to play. He is a national championship. What about his game makes him interesting that the Jazz had to trade up to get to 18 to get him? Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because you think about it, Keontae George was a higher pick than Walter Clayton. And also right now he has 2 more years under his belt in the NBA. But I don't know if I don't think this is very much of a hot take. I think Walter Clayton's going to come in and be a better shooter from day one than Keontae George is. He is just an absolutely ridiculous shot maker. He has step backs. He has pull-ups. He takes hero shots. He can pull up from deep. And I think that he will step in and pick up a lot of those duties for the Jazz. If you look at last year, all of the tough shot-making duties basically fell onto Keontae George, especially with Jordan Clarkson missing so much time. So I think he does step into that role. The only, not even a red flag, but sort of asterisk next to him is that he listed at 6'2" without shoes at the combine. So when I talked with Ben about it, it was like he's in a point guard body, but he has a lot of shooting guard skills. So it'll be interesting to see how the Jazz end up using him.
One thing that I like about the Walter Clayton Jr. selection is that it's not only did he have good shooting percentages. I'm looking at his last year at Florida. He shot 38% from three, 45% from the floor in total. But Walter Clayton Jr., the biggest thing with him is the ball went in when you needed it. And we saw that time and time again throughout March Madness. He showed up when the lights were brightest, when his team needed him the most. It seemed like he was able to elevate his game. Is that a real thing with players? Like, how much does that actually matter when you're in this draft process?
Oh, I think that is absolutely a real thing. And real quick, just to touch on his numbers, if you go back to his sophomore season at Iona, he shot 43% from the three-point line and 95% from the free throw line. Like that is a telltale sign as well. In his second year in college, he was shooting like that, albeit at a smaller school. But after he got drafted and he hopped on the KSL Sports Zone, he was asked, what are you going to bring to this young Jazz roster? And he said, I'm a winner. I'm bringing a winning mentality. And I think that is spot on as well. And I again, not to say anything bad about Keontae George, but I think that he has Keontae beat in that category, this sort of mentality. And I think that, like I said, I think it was a calculated pick to bring in a longtime college guy, and not only that, but a guy who won a lot at the college level next to Ace Bailey with the Jazz's second first-round pick. Yeah, I think he's going to be awesome. I think he's going to get a lot of playing time in year one as well.
After the Jazz picked Ace Bailey, there was a lot of talk, a lot of criticism being reported by national media about Ace Bailey not wanting to be a member of the Utah Jazz, about him not wanting to, not the Jazz not being one of the teams that he wanted to go to. What did you make of all the noise surrounding Ace Bailey following the Jazz taking him?
Yes, I thought that it was pretty ridiculous, to say the least. If you had checked in on any local Jazz reporter, you would see that the Jazz are not asking their rookies to report until Monday. That is when training camp for the Summer League starts. And it's like, oh, Walter Clayton got there early, and good on him for doing that. He's meeting everybody both on the team and in the front office early. But I don't know exactly where Ace Bailey went. I wouldn't be surprised if he went back home, like spent a day with his family. And then the report is that he's going to be in Utah today. I didn't take much from it. I also didn't take much from like the picture of him shaking Adam Silver's hand, and he had sort of a straight face. After he heard his name, he was smiling ear to ear. And then if you looked at all of the interviews after getting up there on the stage, he was happy as can be. I truly do think that all of the not wanting to be in Utah talk and all this stuff was sort of carried over from the pre-draft process and brought on not only from his representation, but specifically from Omar Cooper, Sharif Cooper's dad, who represents Bailey. He's not an MBPA certified agent, and he was sort of just like giving his input on Ace Bailey's draft process. They wanted him to stay, or specifically Omar Cooper, for whatever reason, wanted him to stay on the East Coast. Teams that were mentioned were the Washington Wizards, Brooklyn Nets. So, yeah, I didn't take a lot from it. And I think that regardless of what happens, Ace Bailey is going to be a Jazz man for at least the 4 or 5 years of his rookie contract, and then he's going to be a restricted free agent after that. And like I said, I think that just looking at the team, I think the Jazz were really the best fit for Ace Bailey because, yes, he would have had a lot of opportunity in places like maybe Charlotte or Washington, but I don't trust them to develop as much as I trust the Jazz.
I agree with you there. I think Will Hardy obviously is a great coach, and that's kind of like my initial thought after Wednesday night, and then you come in Thursday morning and you're watching all the shows. Everybody's talking about the Jazz because, as we mentioned earlier, Ace Bailey was one of the best prospects in this draft, even going back to last year. Everybody knew he was going to probably be a top 3 pick if it weren't for the pre-draft stuff. He would have gone 3rd overall. So anyways, a lot of the national narrative is surrounding the Jazz, and you think he's going to be a good fit, and then you get into Friday, and it's kind of turning more negative, and it's like, oh, he's not going to report and stuff. And I think it's just unfortunate because it seems like a perfect storm almost of somebody needs to fall in the draft. There's always a pre-draft narrative that's making somebody fall. And then you have the Jazz where they're a small market team, and you've got kind of the national narrative of almost setting this up to push Ace Bailey out at some point. How do you think that Ace Bailey is going to respond to all of this noise?
And that was one of my favorite things about Ace Bailey after he got picked. Don't get me wrong, like he had the look up there on stage, but then he put his Jazz hat on, and then he went back and took some interviews, and he basically reinforced over and over, like, I'm just here to hoop, man. Like, I want to play basketball. I want to be the best that I can be. And then there was also a video of a Jazz fan dapping up Ace Bailey and saying, like, we need you, man. And then he was like, yeah, I'm ready to get back and get to work. And that's what I think Ace Bailey's going to do. I think he's going to get to work. I think he's going to come back, meet everybody, and then it's just going to be straight to the Zions Bank Training Center. I think he's going to be in there nonstop. And it's like, even looking at his progression from high school to eventually Rutgers, like if you go back and watch one of these Ace Bailey like high school mixtapes, it's basically all athleticism. Don't get me wrong, he was making shots, but you can even see the progression going into his 1 year at Rutgers. I just think he's going to be awesome. I think his shot's going to improve. I think he's going to buy in now that he's in a winning environment. Like Rutgers had Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey, but everyone sort of asked questions about why they were not a very good college team. Now he's going to be in an NBA environment. And like I said, I trust the Jazz to develop him more than some of these other teams. I just think he's going to be in the gym nonstop, and I think that he's going to have a great rookie year.
Looking at the 2025 NBA draft as a whole, for you, Chandler, is there any teams specifically that won the draft a little bit more than other teams? Are there any winners, any losers for any of the selections that were taken on Wednesday and Thursday?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, of course, as I mentioned earlier, I think the Spurs were a big winner. I think that Dylan Harper, of course, was the expected pick and a good pick. There's a little bit of fit questions with De'Aaron Fox and Stephon Castle there, but I still think it was the best pick they could have made. And then Carter Bryant at 14, he's going to come in as a 3-and-D wing, and that's going to fit perfectly next to their guard core and Wembanyama. And then I think another good pick was OKC getting Thomas Sorber at 15. Sorber's a bit of a developmental pick. He's a big man, but like eventually when Isaiah Hartenstein isn't doing the things that he did last year for the title team, I think that he can fill that role very, very nicely. And then, of course, whether it was all luck or not, the Dallas Mavericks got Cooper Flagg. Cooper Flagg is awesome, and he is also going to be a good fit next to Kyrie and Anthony Davis and all them. So I would point out those as the biggest winners for me.
We didn't see a ton of player movement during the draft. Obviously, Phoenix did trade for Williams out of Charlotte. But then we have free agency right around the corner. Do you think there's going to be a lot of movement here in the next couple of days? And what do you expect?
I do think there's going to be a lot of movement regarding the Jazz, and I'm not reporting anything here. This is just my feeling based on the Jazz's roster. As I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of redundancy with Walter Clayton and some of the guards that are already there. And then I would just point out John Collins, Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson. Like Larry Markin has been thrown around a lot, and obviously he's the biggest, the player with the most trade value for the Jazz. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Jazz move on from some of those lower level veterans just to like fully go youth next year and not have any of these wonky injury reports and sort of rolling out half of the roster that they could. And then otherwise, I don't think Giannis is really going anywhere. And he's also put the Bucks in a tough position where it's like, I will make my decision based on what you do this offseason. But the Bucks are like, okay, what if we make all these moves to like put the best roster on you and you don't like it and then leave us? So they're in a tough position over there. And then other than that, I don't know about other like big name all-stars. Like the New Orleans Pelicans definitely had one of the weirdest drafts. They drafted 2 of like the consensus top 10 guys in the last draft. But there's a lot of overlap between Derek Queen and Zion. But with that said, Zion's trade value is at an all-time low. So I don't know about that. I wouldn't be surprised if this offseason we see a lot of the mid-level, like solid starter plus guys moved. Like we're talking about those like $20 to $30 million contracts for just teams looking to get a little bit better. Just because I'm not sure about what bigger names will be available in trades.
Yeah, like a Desmond Bane. We just saw Lonzo get traded actually right before the show. So yeah, some more moves along that line. I agree.
Chandler, when we get caught up in the noise of the NBA draft, but hours before the draft happened, John Collins decides to exercise his player extension. Now he's sitting there on the expiring contract. What do you think the plan is for John Collins?
That was a really interesting move. Basically, what that agreement is for him going into his player option, there's no doubt that the Jazz and him had talked about an extension. So him accepting that one-year player option means that they really couldn't come to an agreement, and that does not mean by any means that John Collins is on his way out. Like that could just mean that maybe the Jazz offered him a lower contract even after a good year, and John Collins was like, okay, I'm going to bet on myself, have a really good start to the year, and then maybe the Jazz will extend him midway through the year. That is definitely a possibility. But also, with that said, him doing that player option, not only is he a 50, 40, 90, almost big man who's also athletic, can create his own shot and also catch a lob now and then, he's an expiring contract. So I think that maybe behind Larry Markkinen now, you could argue that Colin Sexton is a better player, but maybe John Collins has the highest trade value due to being an expiring contract on the Jazz. So that's definitely something to look out for. There's interest that the Lakers are rumored to be interested in both John Collins and Walker Kessler. So we'll see if anything comes of that. Although the Lakers have been after Walker Kessler since his second year, it feels like. So we'll see what happens there. But no, I think John Collins had an amazing bounce back year last year with the Jazz, and I'm 50-50. I would not be surprised if he stays around. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jazz look to move him.
So we talked about Ace and Walter Clayton earlier. Second round, Jazz select John Tanji, and then, of course, they bring in R.J. Lewis as an undrafted free agent. Although he wasn't drafted, he was one of the bigger names in college basketball last year. What are the futures looking like for these two guys? What are their chances of making the roster? I know that there's only a couple of two-way spots up for grabs, so it's kind of going to be a battle for that. What's those guys' path to playing time look like?
Yeah, absolutely. So R.J. Lewis, first of all, signing him as an undrafted free agent, he was top 40 in a lot of people's big boards heading into the draft. So I think that was an awesome pickup for the Jazz. And then, of course, they select John Tanji at number 53 overall, a senior forward out of Wisconsin. And John Tanji, to me, he's kind of similar in a way that Bryce Sensabaugh, to where he's bigger for a two guard, but not quite quick enough to guard threes in the NBA. So he's sort of like a tweener, interesting sort of fit in the NBA. But with that said, he's an awesome scorer, and he projects to maybe be a plus shooter as well. They will no doubt be on the Jazz's summer league team. And then from there, it gets really interesting. Say both of them hoop to their fullest potential at Summer League, and the Jazz are interested in keeping both of them. I'm not quite sure how many two-way spots the Jazz have, but I would assume the biggest priority is getting Oscar Tshiebwe back. He was a fan favorite and even just a favorite within the Jazz organization last year, which makes sense to him even getting a lot of Jazz minutes. So I would just say both of them have to impress in Summer League, impress in the offseason, and then maybe they get a two-way deal. Maybe they just fully sign with the Salt Lake City Stars. But I wouldn't be surprised if last year it's similar to last year, to where after the new year, the Jazz are playing all of the young guys, even going down to the two-way guys, like you saw Micah Potter getting minutes last season. So I would say it would look something like that.
You can read him at KSLSports.com. You can hear him every week on the Jazz Notes podcast. He is Chandler Holt. Chandler, thank you so much for joining us on a Saturday morning. Love your breakdown, man.
Yes, thank you guys very much.
Yeah, you bet. We'll have to get you on throughout the summer.
Thanks, Chandler.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Lovely conversation there. I love it. Wednesday night was so much fun.
Yes.
I had a ton of fun doing the draft show. And obviously coming home with Ace Bailey, Walter Clayton Jr., John Tonje, and R.J. Lewis is quite the haul for the Utah Jazz. Absolutely. Over Wednesday and Thursday. Got to take a break. Do you have something to say? Okay. Well, next segment I was going to say, coming up next, we will kind of give our breakdown of the draft, right?
Yes.
So we'll hit that next. It's the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome back to the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Just had a great conversation with Chandler Holt. Last segment, recapping the NBA draft Wednesday and Thursday night. Chandler Holt, he's a digital producer for KSLSports.com. Does a lot of Jazz stuff. He also has he's a co-host on the Jazz Notes podcast every week. So great to get some insight there. Alex, I very rudely cut you off last segment.
Man. It's all good. I just wanted to jump in a little bit onto this whole Ace Bailey situation.
Yeah, let's get to it, because I think that's obviously the biggest story.
Big story yesterday, and I saw a tweet from Ben Anderson, our Jazz insider, who he posted the TikTok of Jay Billis on stage talking about how Ace Bailey didn't report and show up for a press conference. Right, we all saw it.
Yeah,
and I mean, if you're just scrolling through TikTok and you're just, enjoying your time and scrolling, you stumble upon that video, there's no context to it. They just put Jay Billis's comments about how he didn't show up for a press conference. So it makes him look really, really bad. Mm-hmm. But for the people who are in the know and know what really happened, it just makes you look at the national media, and it makes you question why they're pushing this narrative on this 18-year-old who hasn't even done anything yet, right?
It's very frustrating.
It's so frustrating. It's making Ace look poor. They're trying to make Ace look poor and shine a negative light on Ace when really, he's not the first player to hold out and cancel workouts. No. He's not the first player to go about this process, the pre-draft process, the way that he did, but it seems like the national media is just trying to picture and show and point a really negative light on Ace before he even takes a step onto the court.
1,000%. And we brought it up with Chandler. I mean, Thursday morning after the draft, I turned on Ben Simmons, and the first thing they talk about is how much they love the fit of Ace Bailey to Utah. They like
right.
Will Hardy as a coach. They think that they're going to get the very best out of him. McAfee's talking about it all day. A lot of these guys are talking about how much they like the pick. Then Friday you see, and it kind of sours a little bit, and they're talking about, as you mentioned, Jay Bilas straight up spreads misinformation, false information. He says that Ace Bailey missed a press conference with the Jazz, and that is simply not true. He joined our radio show Wednesday night. He called in, gave us a couple minutes of the busiest night of his life.
Right.
He took time to call in. He held a smaller Zoom press conference with local media, a short and sweet one, before the big introductory press conference. The Jazz have not held anything that is scheduled for next week. He didn't miss anything. So it is very frustrating to see the national media kind of paint this narrative, and I don't know if there is some sort of motive behind it. I don't know if they are trying to turn potentially Jazz fans against Ace Bailey or national fans against the idea of Ace Bailey sticking with the Utah Jazz. But it definitely feels like this is being set up for failure. And I hope that for Ace Bailey's sake and for the Utah Jazz's sake, I hope that Ace Bailey can put the blinders on and shut a lot of that out. Because who gives a rip what the national media is saying about you? I guarantee you, once Ace Bailey comes into Salt Lake City today, not only is he going to say, man, this stuff nice as hell, like what Colin Sexton said, he's going to see the beautiful mountains. He's going to realize that Salt Lake City is actually a really cool freaking place.
Right.
There's a lot of fun things to do. There were people saying he likes to fish. He can go fish with Lowry Markin, and there's a lot of great fishing spots. And then once he gets on the court and he realizes the way that the Utah Jazz community rallies behind this team when they have something to root for, when they have a star to attach themselves to, when they have a big name player that they feel like can lead this team. Look at how well Donovan Mitchell was received in his time here. And I know that it ended poorly. And that was ultimately due to the fact that they couldn't get over the top. I truly think that Donovan initially liked it here. And I don't have any reason to believe that he wanted out from day one. And I could be wrong on that. I don't know. But I think Ace Bailey will realize that it feels great to be loved. And I think the Jazz fans are going to love him.
Right.
If he comes even close to what his ceiling is projected to be.
And I think even overall, man, the situation that he's coming into, I think is set up for his success.
Mm-hmm. More than anybody else in his draft range. You look at teams 1 through, I don't know where the next best fit would have been for him, but it's like, obviously, okay, Mavericks and Spurs, those are good teams. They got lucky, okay? 76ers, he would not have seen the court day one.
I agree.
Hornets, that's a mess. Wizards, they've made some good picks over the last couple of years, but they've never been good, and I wouldn't ever trust them to be good.
Yeah.
Pelicans are a mess. Nets are a mess. I guess the Raptors could have been fun, but they have so many wings anyways, he wouldn't have fit there. Rockets, same thing. Trailblazers, who knows what's up with them. So it's like, where would a good fit have been for Ace Bailey? And you look at the Jazz, and it's them.
Yes. And, we talked about it a little bit last week where we said, look, if some way, somehow, an Ace Bailey falls to number 5, you have to take him. And I love that the Jazz took that swing. Because I think Brian Windhorst on ESPN said it best, right? When you're a team that tanked last season, when you're in desperate need to find a superstar that can really help elevate your team and push you into this next phase of what's going to hopefully be a successful time for the Utah Jazz, I think Ace Bailey is a perfect player to bring in because he does have that ceiling and he does have that potential to eventually make giant steps in his career and potentially be a superstar on this team. And so I love that the Jazz didn't pass up on that opportunity despite all the negative noise, despite all the, everything that was happening with Ace Bailey's pre-draft process and all, and what everybody was talking about Ace Bailey coming into this, some people were even saying he was immature, but I mean, at the end of the day, he's 18 and he still has a lot of room to grow.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most important thing.
I was thinking about that on the drive in this morning. It's like, he's 18.
Yeah.
By the time he's a 10-year vet, a 10-year vet in this league, you think, oh, they're old. He will be 28 and in his prime. Like, that's crazy to me. That's why you draft these young players. And I agree. I think, no offense to Taylor Hendricks and Cody Williams, the two highest Jazz draft selections the last 2 seasons, right? Those guys were projects. And, of course, that's what you're going to get more in that range. Those guys aren't top 5 picks. But those guys are projects. You're doing a lot of betting that they are going to develop NBA skills that maybe they showed potential of in college, but they didn't have anything special that they do day one. You're making a big gamble on those guys. And if they hit, they're going to be great. And I still have a lot of hope for Taylor and Cody. Ace Bailey, he does something very well. He has a tangible skill that is going to translate to the NBA level. And even that, I think is a much better swing than you talk about a Trey Johnson or a Jeremiah Fears, these other guys that were potentially in the Jazz's draft range. Give me the guy that does something. Give me the guy that as Jake and Ben were saying earlier this week, you don't have to sell. You don't have to say, oh man, if this guy hits his potential, he's going to be great. No, Ace Bailey, obviously he still has a lot of development to do, but his shot making, what he can do with his size and his length and his just ability to shoot over anybody, that is very special. It's a very unique skill that not many other people in the NBA can do. So that's that's obviously why the Jazz took him, because they need this pick to hit. This is probably their most important draft pick, at least of the last 10 years, maybe 15, right? They need Ace Bailey or Walter Clayton or somebody to hit and get them out of this rebuild. And 5th overall, Ace Bailey has the highest chance of doing that.
I would agree. I think he has the highest chance at all-star potential, and I think we got to give a lot of credit to Will Hardy and his coaching staff, because I think they've done a tremendous job of developing the young guys and developing talent. I've loved the strides that we've seen from Kyle Filipowski. I love the growth we've seen from Isaiah Collier in just their 1 year in the league, and I think Will Hardy and his guys do a phenomenal job at helping these kids grow. There are some that still I think we need to take a look at and see if they can potentially take more steps. Someone like Keontae George. Mm-hmm. But I think for the most part, Will Hardy and this coaching staff set these young guys up for their best opportunities at success. There's going to be playing time available for Ace Bailey. There's going to be a need to try to find a superstar, and so why not come to Utah and try to make yourself an all-star here with this team, right? With this coaching staff. I believe Ace Bailey, with this coaching staff and the way that they are able to develop talent, I'm very excited to see how he's able to mold into what can potentially be a very, very good player for the Jazz.
Yeah. And another thing I like that Chandler shines some light on is you start, obviously, when you have so many draft picks over several drafts in a row, you're going to get some overlap, right? You're going to get some redundancy, and that's a good thing. Iron sharpens iron. Very cliche phrase, but it holds true. Walter Clayton Jr. is going to push Keontae George. I hope that Keontae George saw that pick and was like, man, I need to play my tail off. If not, I'm losing my spot. He was a guy that, last year he got sent to the bench, and he responded, and he had some good games off of the bench. And now he sees this pick, and he's like, yeah, if I don't take the steps to get better, I'm out.
Yeah.
Cody Williams, a guy that is kind of that 2-3 positional overlap that Chandler was saying, probably where Ace Bailey fits in, right? Cody Williams has got to see that and say, man, yeah, I got to get better. And ultimately that's a good thing. And it for Jazz fans, it's probably hard getting attached to these guys as they get drafted, and then down the road you're going to see somebody's going to have to leave. You can't fit everybody on the roster, but at the end of the day, that's a good thing, because you're going to get the best players out of it. And hopefully you're going to push them to compete and get better. And again, Will Hardy and his staff, we trust them to bring that development.
I think you and Chandler both make really, really good points, because I think, Cody Williams, the reality is his rookie season was underwhelming. Mm-hmm. There was a lot of, I guess there was maybe
on
more,
purpose, right?
Yeah. And I guess there was more expectation for him to come in and be a little bit better than what he showed, but I do think that at the end of the day, it was a disappointing rookie season for Cody Williams. And on the same side for Keontae George, it was a disappointing sophomore season. And so to bring in Walter Clayton, who has, more not necessarily NBA experience, but more experience as far as playing high levels of basketball, right? He helped lead Florida to a national championship last year. He can potentially come in and push the guards, the other younger guards like Isaiah Collier, like Keontae George, to hopefully get better. And same thing with Cody Williams and Ace Bailey. The Utah Mammoth on the clock, Christian.
They made their pick. Max Seneca. He's a defenseman. Can I see the height right? Is he 6'5", 6'6"? Yeah, 6'5", 185. There you go. Bringing some size in. 18 years old. He's European. I missed the country that he is from, but of course he's from the Czech Republic. Thank you, Parker. So of course the Mammoth are picking 46th overall because 14th record in the league. They won the lottery in the first round, so they moved up to 4, but the rest of the rounds they're going to be picking at that 14th pick. But bringing in a big defenseman, 6'5", 185, I like it. I mean, size is their biggest need, and we are going to break down the Utah Mammoth a little bit more. Cole Bagley's going to jump on hopefully around 11:05. I'm assuming he probably has to do some work on the digital side before he can join us, but we're going to bring Chandler in. He's going to talk about this selection here, going to talk about Caleb Denoye being picked last night. Obviously, the J.J. Peterka trade was huge, so we're going to hit all of that later. But, the Ace Bailey stuff, man, I'm excited for it, and I think the ultimate thing that we can walk away with is, like, again, I hope that Ace Bailey can just put the blinders on. And I know it's hard as an 18-year-old, especially in this generation growing up online and seeing everything and seeing all the negative comments. And again, with the national media down his throat, I really hope for his sake he can just funnel all that out. And that's part of being a professional. That's part of being an NBA player. But, man, if he can just focus on ball, like he said, if he can just focus on playing basketball, I think he's going to have a chance to do great things here in Salt Lake City.
Couldn't agree more. And I love that, Austin Age comes out after the picks are made on Wednesday, and he says, look, this is the best case scenario for us. This is exactly what we wanted. We wanted Ace Bailey, and we wanted Walter Clayton. And so that, as from an outside perspective, you hear that, and it makes you feel good about the picks, and it makes you, they did the research on the guys, and these are the guys that they wanted, and they wanted them for reasons, and I can't wait to see what those reasons are and how that translates onto the court, because, right, last year wasn't a fun year for the Jazz, and it'll be fun for Jazz fans, I think, when they finally start turning things around and start making that progress to be a playoff team and to be a championship caliber team. And this could be the start of it. You
would hope, and it wasn't fun. They finished with 17 wins. They did it in an icky way with all these injury reports. They got fined for doing it, but at the end of the day, they wouldn't have got Ace Bailey if it wasn't for it.
That's right.
You hope that, it's tough because obviously next year's pick, again, top 8 protected, so you don't know what they're going to do. They probably don't want to win too many games, but I think the on-court product, at least there's a lot more excitement coming in. So,
couldn't agree more.
Awesome. Let's take a break here. Coming up next on the other side, we're going to get to technical fouls. It is a pretty easy one this week. I think we've got a big one that's fairly easy. So we'll hit technical fouls next. It's the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Welcome back to the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. I'm Christian Esparza, Alex Napoles with me. Thanks for making us part of your Saturday morning. In case you missed it, the Utah Mammoth made their second-round selection, 46th overall. They take Max Seneca, a defenseman from Sechia, 6'5", bigger guy. Of course, remember, Alex, they just traded away Michael Kesselring, so getting some potential depth. Obviously, Ian Cole on the roster. He's an older guy. He's not going to be on the roster forever, so they're going to need some defense help over the next couple of years. I don't know. We'll talk to Cole coming up in about 10 minutes. See about how long it's going to take before we see this kid on the ice. It might be a couple of years down the road, but busy week for the Mammoth.
It's interesting how the NHL draft works, and we'll dive into Cole with Cole here hopefully in just a minute. But I think it's interesting that unlike the NBA and unlike the NFL, their drafts, they pick for their their futures. Like these guys aren't expected to take the ice right away. You look at Ace Bailey; he's expected to take the court in a week, essentially, because summer league because summer league's starting up. You look at the NFL, right, and there's rookies who are looking to make an impact right off the bat. But when you look at the NHL draft, I find it is super intriguing that most of these guys end up going back to the team that they're playing with currently for a couple more years and develop a little bit more before they finally get called up to the big leagues.
Which is funny because that gives you the strategy of just straight up best player available, right?
Yeah.
NBA or NFL, it's like, okay, who do we need an offensive tackle. That's who we're putting our first round pick on. NHL, it's like it's pretty hard to project what your roster is going to look like in 2 or 3 years. You have a general idea, but it's kind of hard.
Yes.
So you you just take best player available, and that's how you end up with what the Utah Mammoth have right now. I mean, they've got a ton of really exciting prospects in the system, and some of those guys are going to be ready to hit the ice soon. So, more with that here in about 10 minutes with Cole Bagley, I'll have to talk to him, see if he's busy with digital stuff. But that's the plan for right now. Alex, let's get to some technical files. We've got a couple of big ones. I'll start off with this, and this is the year that I've seen the most hate for it. But it's something that I've despised with the NBA for years and years and years. Somebody's got to get the freaking hats right on draft night. And I'm so sick of, Parker started the show off playing the draft selection of Walter Clayton Jr., and it says Washington Wizards select Walter Clayton Jr., 18th overall. And it's like, what, this kid is not going to be able to hear. He's being drafted by the Jazz. He's not ever going to be able to hear the Jazz drafted Walter Clayton Jr.
Right.
There's not a picture of him. There is a picture of him in a Jazz hat, right? But shaking hands with the commissioner. He's wearing a freaking Washington Wizards hat.
Yes.
It's 2025. We've got to figure this out. And I know the reasoning is because these trades technically can't be made official until a later date, yada, yada, yada. Figure it out because it's BS. And I think it's actually pretty ridiculous. Donovan Mitchell, there's a picture of him with the Nuggets hat.
Rudy too.
Rudy too. And it's like, you want to have those pictures of these guys on the greatest night of their lives, shaking the hand with the commissioner, wearing the right hat.
Wearing the hat of a team that they probably will never play for.
Oh, it's so dumb.
Never say never because you don't know what's going to happen in 10 years, but
Yeah.
regardless.
There's 30 teams in the NBA.
Right.
The odds that Clayton Jr. is ever going to suit up for the Wizards, pretty low.
Right.
So,
but the chances that he's going to suit up for the Jazz?
Pretty high.
Pretty dang high.
So, figure it out.
And I don't know what was up with the weird oversized hat thing that they were doing this year, where they looked giant on everybody's heads.
Yeah, I don't know.
I didn't like... Well, I don't like the fact that, yes, I know he got quote-unquote drafted by the Wizards, but it was for the Jazz. Let him have a Jazz hat on.
Yeah.
But secondly, the design for the hats this year were atrocious.
Yeah, a lot of it was kind of like a cursive font, very...
But it was like really weird.
And it was hard to read.
It was hard to read. It was on a white background, so it looked even weirder. And then plus the hats were like oversized, and most of these were like giant on everybody's heads.
Yeah.
Let's figure out the hats, NBA.
Let's figure it out.
Let's do better. Technical foul has to be assessed for probably one of the most disliked people in the state of Utah this morning, a man by the name of Omar Cooper.
Who is it?
Omar Cooper is the agent of Ace Bailey, and he is the one who kind of took him through his pre-draft process.
Yeah.
And he's the one that was kind of pushing for all this to happen.
He is... So a lot of it was going around that he's his agent, but he's not certified by the NBA. So I think the proper term is probably handler, because he's not...
Whatever he is.
He's not in any of these meetings with the teams.
Right.
He's not official.
He can't even negotiate his contract.
Right.
What is his purpose?
Exactly.
What are we doing?
He's in his ear. But you're right. A lot of this pre-draft process, telling him to skip workouts, telling him to cancel workouts, try to force his way to the Washington Wizards. Word on the street is that was all Omar Cooper and not Ace Bailey.
Yeah.
Omar Cooper had a son, Sharif, who came out in the NBA draft a couple years ago. I don't remember the exact date. He was not a very good prospect, but he did the same thing. He did not work out for anybody. He did not get drafted in the first round. He might have fell to the second or even went undrafted, and I don't believe he's in the NBA anymore. So we've seen this before with Omar Cooper, but it's hard because you think of, again, highly impressionable 18-year-old kid, and you're getting bad advice. You're going back to ESPN and the national media, you're turning everybody against you, painting a bad picture, and it goes on Ace, which is the unfortunate part.
Yeah.
Is everybody blames Ace for this, and it's not Ace Bailey's fault. And I don't know what Omar Cooper's role is going to be in the future. I'm assuming he's still going to stick around. I don't know if the Jazz are going to have to deal with him or not because, again, he is not the actual agent. Andrew Whitlieb of...
Yes.
So the agency is GSE. He went on with Front Office Sports. They're a sports show yesterday. He came out and basically clarified the situation. He was the first one to say that Ace Bailey is excited to go to Utah, and they think the Jazz are a great fit. So that was kind of some damage control by Ace Bailey's real agency. And he kind of brought up that, yeah, Omar is his handler, and he's the one making these decisions. But we're coming to Utah. We're excited.
Yes.
So
I think, unfortunately, like, I love the fact that after all the drama, right, the representation, his actual representation comes out and says, look, that he's actually super excited to go to Utah. I think that's reassuring for Jazz fans, but I think at that point, like, the damage has kind of been done.
100%.
And I think if they were going to come out with this statement and their damage control, it should have been done a little bit sooner, Christian. I think
Before the draft?
I think you can agree on that. But I think now at this point, it eases Jazz fans, but at the same time, I think now the only thing that's going to kind of take away the negative light that's already been shined upon Ace Bailey is going to be if he can translate performances onto the court.
Right.
And once he starts performing, everyone's going to forget about this, including the national media, and it's going to be, oh, Ace Bailey is the dude. Ace Bailey is the guy. And so that's what, again, going back to the conversation we had last segment, it's just going to be, can he show up and be the guy?
Yeah. And the biggest thing is just showing up and doing your thing. Show up and do your thing. Obviously, you're going to mature. He's 18 right now. You are going to mature in the next few years. I know I've matured a hell of a lot since I was 18. I'm sure you have.
Absolutely.
And, that's what everybody does. So hopefully as he grows older and matures, he can start kind of making more decisions on his own and not have to have a handler or whatever. But at the same time, I mean, I get it. It's scary going into this big world. You need somebody, not just going into the NBA, but one of the highest rated prospects coming out of high school, choosing your college in the NIL world. I get wanting somebody, and I don't blame him for choosing somebody. I don't know why. I don't know what his connection to Omar was. I don't know why that was chosen, but it's what it is. And yeah, we'll see how long Omar Cooper sticks around, but all Ace Bailey can do is show up and ball out, and that's his job.
And I think the best thing, too, was Omar Cooper posting on Instagram yesterday. Mm-hmm. Finally.
Right.
Posting on Instagram.
After it was announced that Ace Bailey is coming today.
Yeah. And he was like, at Utah Jazz, let's go.
Let's go, yep. And that was the first thing that we've seen from him.
Yes.
And we did see Ace Bailey post as well. So
yeah.
That's how you kind of know that hopefully this drama is resolved and he's going to show up for work and be ready to go. So
we'll see, man.
We will. All right. Let's take a break. Coming up next, we will chat with Cole Bagley, our Utah Mammoth insider. The NHL draft is underway. Day 2, rounds 2 through 7. The Mammoth have made their second-round pick. And then last night, of course, they take Caleb Denoye with the 4th overall pick. And earlier this week, making the huge trade for J.J. Peterka. Going to talk all of that with Cole Bagley around the corner. Stay tuned. It's the Saturday Show, 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone.